6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris. I'm Chris, she's Anna. How you doing, Anna?
Pretty good. It's kind of like a weird transition phase in both hockey and life. You know, in the city, the weather. We're kind of stepping into autumn, which is kind of sad in one way, but also exciting in the sense that hockey is coming. So I just feel kind of in between.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I'm in the in-between yet. Like, I look at the weather forecast and it's cold and warm, then cold and warm. It's like back and forth.
Yeah.
We had like fall arrived, but it was a false fall, and then summer came back, and then now it's coming back.
Yeah, to be honest, Saturday was glorious, and now it's just Sunday, not so much. Sunday is autumn. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, the sun came out during my daughter's soccer game just before halftime, and at her age, we don't swap sides. So we got like, our goaltender had like the sun full face.
Did the weather
game.
Kind of like do anything, or did it predict a sort of shift in the game, or?
Oh, no. I mean, the game was back and forth. I think the final score was 28-27 or something like that. I mean, I exaggerate, but their defense was not
defense optional.
I mean,
yeah,
she's at the age where, honestly, if we can get them to not swarm around the ball or each other,
that's a win. Yeah,
that's
a
win.
I get that.
And it's interesting because we'll talk about this. I can ask them questions. They totally know. Game time, all four of them, like it's the full press, and if they can pass the ball, through the four girls who are all attacking at the same time, they'll get like a clear breakaway. But then I've got some athletes on my team. These girls, they got some good back check ability, and they just, throw in the jets. It's great to see. I'm loving being in the system.
That's pretty good. Yeah, honestly, I'm impressed that at Ari's age that they're doing anything more than, everyone after the rules.
Well, so Ariel has been like that for a few years.
Yeah, because
that's a problem.
Your kid.
She's been exposed to going to like Whitecaps matches since she could go to a Whitecap.
I was going to say, is that the best model for her?
No, but comparative to some of the others, they've not been exposed. And I my own sort of family, like my sister and my brother, were far better players than me. I'm more than willing to concede that. But they also had an advantage. They were watching me, and I think that exposure helped them develop and understand the game at a better level than someone like me who was like learning as I was doing, and coaches were teaching me and all that. And I'm not knocking that. It's just that exposure is good benefits. One of the reasons why, I was reading Daniel Wagner's book on the Canucks at the draft.
Yeah, great book,
and,
I have to say.
And, a couple of the I don't want to say chapters because they are chapters, but like he'll talk about specific players, but multiple players within a chapter. And it sort of hops and horse, like how like Jannik Hansen and I want to say, was it Oland or Edler, where they're learning from older siblings.
Yeah. It is kind of interesting because, from my perspective, I grew up with football. Like my parents were divorced. I spent whenever I was with my dad, all we did was play football. Like me and my brother would play football with my dad or go to Arsenal games. I've been going since I was 6 or 7 to Highbury. So you do develop this innate understanding, and it's weird to sort of have to develop that as an adult for hockey when you've never played the game. So it is interesting, thinking about tactics purely from a fan point of view.
Yeah. Speaking of Arsenal, how about the result today?
I mean, if you'd have told me the result ahead of time, I would have bitten your hand off. If, in case you don't want the Premier League, Arsenal drew 2-2 with City. 10 men, like, one man down. So really, you would think that's an excellent result. The only thing is they conceded that equalizing goal in the 97th minute. So it was frustrating from that point of view, but overall a good result. The women were playing out a 2-2 draw with City on this at the exact maybe 2 hours before at a sold out Emirates. So that was cool to see as well. But yeah, like overall fair results, but just frustrating the way they happened, I guess.
Yeah. We're here to talk about the Vancouver Canucks. Camp has begun.
And
we've been talking about camps coming. Well, yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, when is the Canucks' first preseason game, though? It's like, what, Thursday or something?
No, there's one on Tuesday. Tuesday and Thursday both against the Kraken.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's where. So I've been watching the advertisements show up on, like, social media.
Yeah,
and how
maybe they play Tuesday in Abbotsford, something like that.
So the Abbotsford game, they're advertising like Pedersen, Hughes.
I know. We'll see, right?
So
they promised big.
They have an out with Pedersen. They just need to throw out a Pedersen. It doesn't.
That's true.
That's true. This is just because it shows the Pedersen we've known to grow in love's picture doesn't necessarily mean that the Pedersen that they're promising is that one.
They look pretty similar, anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll get into some notes, some thoughts. Obviously, the preseason is where the big decisions get made. Goaltending doesn't seem like we're ever going to stop talking about it on this show, because the Vancouver Canucks did us a solid in that department by finding themselves a starter, a backup, a guy for less than the mill. So we'll get into that, and I don't know. We're going to figure out a way to get a 1 hour episode into the books. But for us to get there, we first got to rewind. I guess the news that we should probably touch on is the fact that the Vancouver Canucks have signed Kevin Lankinen to a 1-year deal. $875 is or $875,000. I should, like, people may have misinterpreted that as 8 million, 0.75 or something. So less than $1 million. Which arguably I think is okay money. I would rather not have come to this, but considering we haven't a clue the health of our number one goaltender, despite the fact our number one goaltender spoke on his own after the general manager and head coach have, which I found weird to its own.
Yeah, especially given Thatcher Demko's general personality.
Yeah, hey, Alvin, tell us more. We'd rather let Thatcher do it in his own words tomorrow. That doesn't sound right. Like, it's one thing to go and say, hey, here's where he's at, ... and he's going to be available tomorrow. Patrick Alvin just quite out said, speak to Thatcher, man.
Yeah, he'll tell you all. He was, like, it's so funny to me. The bar with Thatcher is so low that I've seen so much praise about Thatcher's, like, presser to the media. I was just like, when I watched it, I was like, oh. But it's just because Thatcher hates talking to the media so much that was considered him being open and honest,
Yeah. Oh, well, anyhow, so let's talk about Lankinen. He signed for probably less money than I think he was hoping to get in the market.
Do you think he was just like, the music stopping? This is the chair left.
You got to consider, you're a goaltender who wants a good paycheck, and Camp's pretty much done everywhere.
Like,
so when's the phone going to ring?
Yeah, clearly the Canucks have been talking to him for a while, but like there gets a point where it's like, like no one else is calling. So yeah, you clearly think that 1 year at 875 was not what he was hoping for. If it took this long, weeks, maybe more of them talking. So yeah, I guess the Canucks won. Not that it's a trade, but they won the deal.
So they won the deal. Okay.
I don't know. But like, Canucks were in a difficult
I don't
situation,
feel the Canucks,
right? Like,
yeah, I was going to say, I don't feel the Canucks have won because they're having to go out and spend money that they would have wanted to have held on to into the season.
But given that, wouldn't you think that, like, the fact that they didn't budge, clearly they didn't budge that much, because there's literally, 125 up from league minimum at the minimum amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
So Canucks clearly didn't move that much. So, like, Canucks didn't, Lankinen, he had nowhere to go, but Canucks also needed a goalie. Like, Shelov's seems to be okay. Like, there's no way to talk about Lankinen in isolation without mentioning the health of the other goalies, and that Shelov seems to be okay and recovering from his knee inflammation, but it's a lot to bet on Shelov's to be not just a backup, but, like, potentially, like, shouldering a significant burden, because we don't know what's happening really for sure with Demko.
Well, before we get into the Demko presser, let's talk about the Lankinen acquisition. Is he the presumptive starter at this point?
As in to start the season? Yeah, I think so. I think Shelov's backs up. Yeah, like, Lankinen has the experience. I think that's what they're saying. And, like, it feels a little harsh on Shelov's, considering the work effort he put in the playoffs, but, like, really, when you look at his whole resume, there's not a lot to go on.
Yeah. I ask this question because if he's the presumptive starter, and let's, work on the presumption that nothing changes over the course of the preseason, does that then mean if and when Thatcher is healthy, Seelos is finding his trade be implied in the city of Abbotsford?
And that's a hard thing to say, but, like, I think it really depends. Like, I do think they are, like, it's more likely that, yes, when Demko's back healthy, that Lankinen is a backup in that scenario, but, we'll see what happens, right? Like, he's not necessarily a young goalie, Lankinen. Like, he's
29,
been around. Like, if he remains healthy, and he keeps posting, like, a decent save percentage in the 900s here, like, then I think, yes, he will be sliding into that backup spot. But I don't think it's certain by any means, so I don't think Lankinen should be in any... I mean, how can you be in any way complacent if you didn't have a job until September 21st?
Yeah, and, for those who are also curious, how, quote-unquote, much of a deal is Lankinen? He just came off a contract of $2 million AAV, a one-year deal in Nashville. That was a slight raise to the one-year deal he had in Nashville the year previous, the season previous, at $1.5 million. So he is making less than half of what he was making 2 years ago, or about half. Like, it's definitely a haircut. And the fact that, the deal that he signed, that deal was way late in the offseason. Like, it's usually quite unheard of to have waited that long and then suddenly get that phone call. You mentioned he's older. He's only 6 seasons in the NHL. He's not like,
no, he's not
into his 30s.
Yeah, like,
and
I know
there are goaltenders.
Ranta was another option bandied about. Ranta ended up leaving the league, so yeah, that would have been like, and obviously goalies peak later, etc. But like, Lankinen's on a decreasing amount of games per season, and like, he played roughly 20 of the last 2 seasons, but, like, that's a decrease from when he was playing in Chicago. Obviously, Chicago to Nashville, that's like a step up in quality. So you wouldn't necessarily expect him to be playing the same amount of games. But yeah, like I think it is his. I think the plan would be that he starts the season and he steps into the backup role once Demko's healthy. But I don't think that's set in stone at all.
Now, we'll obviously know more when we come back and record another episode, because we're not here next weekend, long weekend, as is our practice. We take that time off. But Thatcher Demko came out, talked to the press, explained how his off season has gone and how frustrating his injury happens to be. If he recovers from the rare muscle ailment as to which he has that only 4 people in the entire world of professional sports have ever experienced. Yes. Like, this is the part that I find so interesting. If it is so rare, why do you have to be so guarded about it?
Oh, but like, that's hockey though.
No, I know, but like, what are you gonna, short of saying an out of body injury, I have a muscle issue. But the organization, and their staff, medical staff, his own agent and not medical staff, but the referrals that he's seeing, they have had to scour the world of professional sports to find anyone else who's experienced such an injury.
Yeah.
Apparently it's more common in soccer or football to the tune of like 3 people.
Yeah.
Like, and he had surgery. He did say he had surgery.
Unrelated?
Yeah. So
like, hockey is so bizarre. Like, it's just like literal, like, I feel like Charlie Day, that's the guy, right? In the meme?
Yeah.
He's just like
Charlie Day
putting together pieces.
Horrible bosses. Yeah. So let's go back in time. He's injured at the end of last season, comes back, injures himself after game 1 or during game 1, or was he always injured? And whatever the injury was, they hadn't a clue what it was. So therefore, he can't play. But he's going to come back in the 3rd round. And he even reiterated, I would
have come back, but I shouldn't have. Like,
yeah. So he would have come back for game 1 of round 3, only to go back out again. It's frustrating. He'll have to live through it. Rehabilitation is going well. Though there are times where it is so frustrating that it's not going as well as he would want. Like, it seemed like he would be like, oh yeah, gangbusters, making great strides. Hate that I'm not making big strides. What?
Yeah.
Like, you can't have both.
But it does seem like that they're in a much better position come September than they were for most of the summer. Well, that's what it seems to be. Like, they had a frustrating parts of the summer. Like, both Rick Tocchet and Patrick Allvin kind of said, if we're talking last month, I wouldn't be able to tell you anything or be hopeful at all, but now I feel like hopeful. But like, honestly, we'll believe it when we see it. Like,
a question came up though, is how do you avoid what's happened from happening again? And the answer is cross that bridge when we get to it. I know,
and that's like, it does scare me a lot because like, it's literally what we just talked about, like that he would have come back in round 3, even though he wasn't ready to come back. Like, he needs, like, Thatcher Demko is definitely his own worst enemy, and he needs to be managed massively in this. Like, we kind of said before that all this injury crap happened, like, because of his record, he needs to be managed better and, like, have his load reduced. But, like, really hope that that's the case. Even, like, if we're thinking percentage-wise, just because he starts the season late and he's going to have a lower load anyway, he should still have a lower percentage than last year, you know?
Yeah. I ask you this. Vancouver Canucks, if they do not have a healthy Thatcher Demko, the guy that can steal you games, is that team going to perform as well as the team that did with him in the net for
no
2/3, 3/4 of a season?
Like, I feel confident that this team is good enough to perform the same with Thatcher Demko out for the beginning of the season, but if he's out for a significant percentage, even if that's the case of comes back when we, relatively soon and then disappears again, yeah, I really don't have confidence that the Canucks are good enough without a healthy Thatcher Demko, or healthy enough.
Yeah, well, we'll get a good glimpse over the course of the next week or so, and then
Well,
we'll cross that bridge when we get to
yeah.
it. Looking at the rest of camp, though, who stood out to you at camp the most?
Well, I mean, I'm about ready to eat my own words here with the sort of Lakamaki stuff, because I kind of expected him to be not as close as he seems to be, if that makes sense. Like, still with a ways to go to adapt to North American games, the speed, the physicality, the size of the rink. Obviously, he came to North America late last season, but yeah, I kind of thought he is a player with a huge ceiling, huge skill level, but he's gonna be a bit off the pace when it comes to main camp. I didn't expect him to be a standout, and he does seem to be that, so yeah,
I agree. Although I'd like to point out, we were talking about Lakamaki last episode, and I had said, wouldn't it be nice if this kid performed at such a level that they hated having to send him to Abbotsford?
Right. And that's the thing. It's just like, in my mind, last week, there was no doubt in my mind that spending the majority of the year in the Abbotsford was the best thing for him. Now I'm like, not so sure.
Yeah,
like, I still think
he goes.
Yeah.
I could see him potentially being that guy you call up, but I think he's the guy you call up if you want him to be on the ice.
That's the thing. Like, this isn't a fourth line guy that can fill in. Like, that would be of no benefit to him, and that's my main kind of thrust with the Lakamaki thing.
Our Steve Baines last season got a handful of starts, sort of when he got his first call up, but then in the subsequent call up spent more time in the press box. I don't necessarily see Lakamaki benefiting from that.
Yes, agreed.
Than sort of, where Baines was that last season.
And the thing is, Baines is kind of at that consistent level. Like, he's still got to step up to be like an everyday NHLer, but like, he consistently performs, and he is a solid fill-in guy for the NHL.
Now, I see that you've trademarked something in the rundown, and I'm just going to pull the curtain back. Danton Heinen creating chemistry with Team America. TM.
Yeah. I mean, just aren't they the most American men you've seen? Like Brock Besser with his sort of cartoon Prince Charming face and blonde hair, and then JT Miller's just being the gruff, tough guy from the Midwest. Like, really? They're just the most American.
I'm waiting for you to describe Danton Heinen.
Well, he's a local kid.
I know.
But that's what I mean. Like, although he's from Langley, so that's near the border.
Well, no. I was, so drawn into the fact that you're going to such descriptive length to outline to listeners the looks of both Brock Besser and JT Miller. It's
Danton Heinen looks very Scandinavian, don't you think? I thought he
looks like a guy from Langley.
To me,
I don't know what a guy from Langley looks like, but that's Danton Heinen.
It's like, Danton, not a name. Can we just put that out there that that's not a name? Have you met anyone else called Danton?
How is Danton not a name?
Have you ever met anyone else called Danton? No offense to any listeners called Danton.
My brother had a, I don't know, friend, acquaintance, whatever.
I really thought you were going to say nephew, thank God. But
no, my nephew is not Danton.
I've met your nephew, but I was worried there was a secret other nephew.
No. Well, there are two nephews, but neither are called Danton.
Yeah, Danton's not a name. It's just one of those weird North American made-up names.
Apologies to all Dantons. Her name is Anna.
Yeah. And Heinen just like, I mean, it sounds German, right? Like, but it could easily be Swedish or that kind of Northern European. It must be Northern European. And he looks very just Northern European. Yeah, anyway. Team America.
So another, statement from the rundown. Niels goes full Hogue, but loses his spot.
Well, I mean, as much as people actually have cemented spots, but just like Hoglander came top in all the fitness tests. Hoglander scored the highest, I guess, overall. But it does seem like he's taking Dakota Joshua's spot for the moment, which is okay.
Which, on that note, the other big news, Dakota Joshua is currently unavailable, having been diagnosed as having, I guess it would be a form of testicular cancer.
Oh, shoot. Was that not last... we didn't cover that last week? Sorry.
We didn't.
Okay, apologies. No. I thought we had, so I would have signposted that bigger. But yes, that is huge.
Yeah, so the statement was released on the 17th, which close to when we would have recorded and released. But he has shared that it was caught early and has taken the necessary steps to overcome. I fully appreciated that the Vancouver Canucks shared this and were candid, especially because I'm going to say it in any way I can. Men's health is at times swept under the rug. It's not
men's
something that
health, men's physical health, both are not talked about enough.
Yeah, and health is important regardless of gender, but there is a kind
of intimate
a stigma
health,
that's
right, on both men's and women's. Are just like
it is.
It's almost like there's something shady talking about where it's just like this is just physical health. Like it's so important.
Well, it is, and
to check.
The type of cancer is not one that one goes and talks about. I shared in C4 Discord, when I saw the statement, and I thought I had shared the statement. So, thanks, Mr. Loud Brother, to a friend of the show, posting it. But I shared, to use as a reminder to check out those bits and bobs, boys and girls. Like it is stuff you gotta notice, and you go and talk to a medical professional if you got questions. It was caught early, and that's the thing about this type of diagnosis. The earlier it is discovered, the sooner that treatment can start, the more successful the outcome will be.
And it does seem to be they're very hopeful that he's gonna be back sooner rather than later, which is awesome. But it's kind of crazy, no matter how early they caught it and how successful the whole operation was, that's a chunk out of your fitness and your skating schedule. So just what did you do this summer? Hang out on the lake or have a cancerous cell removed, bunch of cells removed. Yeah, that's crazy. But I'm very glad that he's okay. And I'm glad that Canucks kind of use that platform to promote that sort of men's health angle.
Back to Hoglander.
Yeah.
Filling in that role. I actually look at that being a sort of feather in Niels's cap, so to speak, that he is so versatile that he is looked at as someone that can slide into a role almost seamlessly. Is he sort of the modern day Alex Burrows in that regard? Burrows would be utilized in, multiple different ways, and he would adapt to the need. When Burrows first, started out with the Vancouver Canucks, he was that spark plug, master of the dark arts, never really, gave up his master, maybe got a PhD in it at some point. But then when he was elevated to play with the Sedins, he suddenly became, that skilled player who could support the cycle a little bit longer. Like, he was responsible and coaches trusted him to do whatever job he was told to do. If Höglander is starting to fill that role, I think every team benefits in having a player like that. But that adds depth without having to add another body to do that job just in case.
Yeah, and like you say, it's good that he's versatile. Obviously, him and Garland kind of share that kind of doggedness. You sort of never give up on a play kind of mentality, which is good. And who's to say what's going to happen with that line with Petey and Jake DeBrusk? Like, these are untested waters. Like, I mean, Petey, we talked about putting him in a position to succeed, and which means signing Jake DeBrusk, but it's also like, okay, you've never played together before. Go for it. I know they played a lot with Lakamaki. Not sure if that, like we said, would actually be an NHL line. Daniel Sprong is a possibility. Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. But obviously, we know that Petey and Höglander can gel, even if it's not a consistent line that comes up.
Yeah. So I pulled up the schedule, seeing as, got to get back in the groove here. Vancouver Canucks preseason gets underway at home at the Raj against the Seattle Kraken, that being on Tuesday the 24th, 7 p.m. puck drop. They then go to Abbotsford to play on Wednesday in what's determined to be a neutral site game, which I find odd. But whatever. That's a 7 p.m. puck drop Wednesday. They then travel down the Highway 995 to Seattle for Friday, 7 p.m. They go to Calgary for a 6 p.m. Puck drop, then up to Edmonton for a Monday, 6 p.m. Puck drop. And because we aren't around to record an episode until way then, they then play at home against the Oilers, 7 p.m. puck drop on Wednesday, October 4th.
Yeah. Friday, October 4th.
They say Wednesday, Friday. Yeah, sorry. Friday, October 4th. The two notes about the sort of travel schedule. It's not the whole team going any which way. Like, what we do know based on ads, Hughes and Petey are playing in Abbotsford.
And Miller.
That could be the only, and Miller. Okay. That could be the only game those three play for all we know.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Rick Talker's kind of already talked about this, and he said he wants to get them into 3 games, at least, the top guys.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
If they do, it could also be sort of later. Like, the Vancouver Canucks have back-to-backs, a game in Seattle and a game in Calgary, and I'd almost hazard a guess.
Yeah.
No player plays in both.
Yeah, I'd be shocked.
In fact, I would be surprised if it's the same coaching staff behind the bench for both of those games. And that sort of begs the question, what happens against the Oilers only, a couple of nights after the Calgary game? Who knows? And then there is a considerable amount of time off before they then play the Oilers at home on Friday the 4th. So, stuff and things.
Yeah. Yeah. Preseason's just such a weird time. But yeah, like Rick Tocchet has said that he does want a good look at the Abbotsford boys. And yeah, that involves like Baines and Ratu and Lakamaki. So
yeah,
we'll see.
One final note and rewind. Will the Larshiders be at a game in the preseason or in the regular season?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I know you can't get into the details of it all.
Which I know
but
none of, by the way. Like,
whatever, you're totally on the inside. You and Francesco talk and FaceTime daily.
They have been like on the inside of the last shows at various points, but not right now. So I don't know.
So to bring our listeners up to speed, the Larshider sort of fan supporter group that formed 5-6 years ago now?
That, like
7?
They said a decade, but I think it's been 8 or 9. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it could very well be a decade. I don't know. Like, I've been around the team for so long that I can't keep track of what's what. But what I do know is that, fan group gets put together, starts seeing considerable success, team suddenly starts looking good. And this is unfortunately what has happened in the modern era frequently. Once the team starts becoming successful, the need for fan supporter groups is much lower because the money's in the bank, whether or not they're there. And I'm not trying to take away the effort of those in the organization who see the value, and I'm not trying to take away the effort of the supporters themselves, but the team has never done a good job. And quite frankly, almost ignores, like, I was seeing some of the comments that some of the Larshiders are saying, like, this is the first fan supporter group, the first time they've done this. And I'm like, no, they've done this before. Like, before the Larshiders, when they were doing social media events, you had what was called Team Rowdy, smaller than the Larshiders were because it never really got off the ground. But, we used to be able to have the presence, and the team would invite us. We'd have like a suite. But before us, and it went on for years, was the Canucks Booster Club. They used to have tables set up in the concourse. You could buy memberships. Like, it was a formalized group. They would sort of buy group tickets to games. And again, for people who don't think the Larshiders don't buy tickets, they do. Think of it as a large group buying.
We're not getting free tickets here, just to be clear.
No. And so, but the Booster Club would have been around forever and a day. Yes, it was getting older, obviously a contributing factor, but the organization was like, yeah, man, our concourses are too busy for you to set up tables. You want tickets? Great. Buy some. Oh, you want to sit together? Too bad. Like, it was, and finally it went away. Like, it just happens. This is what the team does. And this isn't a, Larshiders moment. It's just, unfortunately, the inevitable impact that the team sort of forces upon itself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to spend too long on this because I definitely don't want to seem like I'm moaning on my own behalf. But, like, I will say, like, sports as a whole, like, season ticket holders, and Larshiders are not season ticket holders, but, they are a fan group that are going to a certain number of games per season, are the least valuable fans, right? Because, they pay a certain amount, and, like, obviously hockey is still a gate-driven market, especially in Canada, but, like, in general, like, you want to get those single game tickets. Those are what's valuable to a sports team. What I would say, like, is that you just hope that any sports team recognizes its unique position, that they are not just a brand that, like, wants to make money at any cost, but sort of has some degree of, not just, like, some degree of loyalty towards its fans, which would mean, like, valuing something that, like, brings culture, which I think Larshiders have. Like, look at Rob's article on Daily Hive. Like, almost any cool fan engagement moment was started with the Larshiders over the last 5 years, I would say. So, like, Rogers was a tough arena. Like, it's really not been great. And, like, as soon as the Canucks downturn again, that's going to come back. I was going to say,
to put an asterisk on that, Rogers Arena is a tough arena when the Canucks aren't doing particularly well. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Larshiders, because you're right. The Larshiders brought an energy that would have been absent, and were doing things that energized the crowd, got people involved. Actually, I felt enhanced the brand. And, I said this in C4 Discord, and I'll share this on the show. In my experience, Canucks marketing and Canucks sales don't generally have parallel priorities.
Because there's some really smart people working for the Canucks, but they don't necessarily, like you say, kind of gel together. Like, Canucks can always, like, if you're doing well, Canucks are going to sell tickets, but you kind of, like, if Oasis get back together, they're going to sell tickets, but you kind of hope that there's some measure of not exploiting supporters.
Oh, Oasis is forever together. They're going to, like, take over the mantle from Aerosmith.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into
finally
a debate about dynamic pricing here, but it's just, like, because, and I said this in our Discord, but like, Canucks have never like been great with organizing the last riders, so we didn't think it at all unusual that we didn't have tickets yet. Like,
they didn't. Be honest, I don't think they wanted to break the news.
Yeah.
It's not, and
which is kind
let me
of
rephrase
lame
that.
as well.
I think it was a combination of a good portion just didn't care.
Sure.
Like it wasn't even on the radar, let alone being a priority. And those that it was, didn't want to break the news
They were
because
probably the people that were rooting for us in the first place, which...
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting because when the news broke, it's the Canucks PR mechanism fired up. If they were proactive, if they were actually much more engaged, they would have been the ones breaking the story saying, oh yeah, here's the problem. We're trying to figure this out. We've got some creative ideas. Next season, we think we might even have a space that'll just be like,
you could
rock
so easily have sold it like that and almost done like, like we've always like struggled to move season ticket holders because I know that's always been an issue, but like, and this year it's just not possible.
They could have owned the narrative, but they didn't.
Yeah. Like,
Anyhow.
Thanks for everything. Let's make something work. Like, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anything came out of it, they've now come to their senses and they're thanks for everything. Let's make something work in the future. Maybe this season, who knows?
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
I figure y'all will be in a suite for one game. Kind of like what they used to do with Team Rowdy and the Canucks.com forum mods and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anywho, you're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So who do you think needs to show that they're worth keeping?
Yeah.
I only asked the toughest.
Yeah. I know. I love how I wrote this in the rundown, but I don't have a good answer. Yeah, like, it's hard to say. Like, I do think, like, Canucks pretty much know, like, who's going down and who's staying up. But, you know, I just don't think there's anything as, like, set anymore. Like, especially, like, there's a lot of uncertainty in the D. And, like, I mean, who knows how Vincent Desharnais is going to get on? Who knows how Derek Forbort's going to get on? Like, Derek Forbort's, like, brought in as a special teams specialist. That's, like, I couldn't think of another word there. So if he's not performing in that, like, that's, kind of terrifying and huge. Like, we got, like, Desharnais $2 million per. Derek Forbort's at 1.5. Like, that's quite a big bet on very unknown prospects.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but look, if you look at the blue line, they've essentially got 7 players.
Yeah.
And those,
I mean, you could just
are
keep
probably
them,
the
right?
Yeah, there's no change there. I feel there's no competition on the blue line. You know, with all respect to
and I
the other
agree.
PD.
I only mean to say it's like unknowns.
Yeah. Kirill Kudrasev, I think, did I get his name right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all respect to him. Like, these are guys who are they're
All
much better
respect to
spent.
Jetwu.
Yeah, they're much better spent. Yeah.
I saw someone tweet today. I didn't know the Jetwu was still on the Canucks, and I was like, getting shots.
They didn't know the Jetwu?
Like, he's getting shots all over the place. He's getting taken down by online Canucks fans. yeah, I still believe like that Christian Wolanin is a special defenseman at the AHL level. Still unclear whether that will ever translate.
Well, he's 29.
Yeah.
Like,
but he's so good. Like, he's the best defenseman in the league, and it's not close.
But you know, you look at who they have on the blue line. No, Juleson will be the spare. Teams generally carry a spare, right? So,
so it's not to say like, I don't think there's any question marks on the D as who's going to be there. It's more just like how they're going to do.
Oh well, I mean, we've gone over that ad nauseum. There's a whole lot of questions up front, though. For me, I feel the Vancouver Canucks are in this weird space where they have a lot of potential tied up of, and we've been around here as a show forever. We always talk about the what ifs. And what if this happens and this happens? And if this happens and that happens, oh my God, the Vancouver Canucks are going to be so good. I feel that up front, it's not that what if they'll be so good. I think if this were to happen and this were to happen, they'd be so much better. Like, I don't see, and we've talked about this sort of a couple of times since he was signed, Jake DeBrusk not panning out, at least in the early going of his deal. You had mentioned in the rundown, we didn't get to it, like, down the sprung in the shot. This is a guy who's offensive minded. I think for Bubbles is concerned, he makes the opening night roster. But has a very short leash.
Okay, sure. But the thing is, it's like the leash. It's like we know who he is. He can't defend, and he can shoot like wicked hard.
But if you got him on a line where you have two defensively responsible forwards with him, and you let him let loose in the right situation.
But then what are we looking at as our top line? PD, Jake DeBrusk, and if it's not Daniel Sprong.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, let's just flesh it out here. Like, PD, Jake DeBrusk, let's put Daniel Sprong there for now. Brock, JT, and Danton. Connor, Teddy Bluger, Niels Hoglander. Yeah, I mean, you've got two left-handed shots there I think that would be fine. Like, Niels Hoglander can do it. Maybe. Otherwise, Daniel Sprong's playing on the line. And then Nielsen, Pia Suda, Sherwood, yeah. Presumably,
you think Nielsen,
yeah.
You think he's got himself an opening night start?
The alternative being,
well, I don't know.
Like, I haven't heard like Sammy Blaze's name mentioned once. Have you?
No,
not in dispatches, right? Like, if he's,
but he's PTO, and PTO generally doesn't sign.
Right. No, and even though Sammy Blaze is Mr. PDO, Mr. Camp, pressing in preseason. But yeah, if you have another idea,
well,
as to the fourth line,
there's some thought that Aturatu, right, could slide in, and he was the get in that. Was that the Horvat deal that he came over?
Yeah.
I'm trying, right. Like it's so surreal that that's what 2 years away from it happening, and we're talking about a kid who's stuck in Abbotsford.
I forgot his name for a sec, but he came over with Villiers.
Yeah. So I know Aturatu I could see sign in, but again, short leash. Like
also, like, are we having like three centers play on the fourth line?
I've heard this saying far too many times to ignore it. It's never a bad thing to have too many centers.
Right. And like, once you're a fourth line, beggars can't be choosers. Play on the wing.
Hey, you get thrown out of the circle, darn straight, you don't have to worry because the next guy who knows how to do the job comes in, right? And if it was easier for a winger to become a center, they'd all be doing it. It's amazing how many centers can become wingers.
Yeah.
Oh, well. You had mentioned Talkett wants to see bubble guys. Baines, Lekkerimäki, Ratu in the preseason. Of those three, who's got the best shot
I'm making it
to not making the opening night roster, but at least being on the roster
like
with the big club?
Right, as in, yeah. Sticking with the big club. Lekkerimäki, but he won't stick. Who do I think will play more games as a Canuck this season? Archdeep Baines.
Okay, so I would agree with Baines. Now, I'm not disagreeing that Lekkerimäki doesn't make it difficult and starts at the club. I just don't see them keeping him upstairs so he can watch only to be sent down. I don't feel that works well for him.
Yeah,
I could potentially see Ratu doing that.
I agree. Ratu hasn't really. He spent less time than Archdeep Baines with the big club, right? Like, even in the press box. So
if you discount the few games he got after the trade, did he come up at all last year?
Great
I don't think so.
question. He has played. Yeah, no, he didn't have any games with the big club last year. He had 3 games when he got traded.
Yeah. Well, because again,
I was trying to remember,
oh my God,
did he get called up and not play? It's possible.
No, I don't think he got called.
So.
Well,
like
maybe in like the postseason.
Yeah, as a Black Ace.
Like as a,
sure.
Black Ace, yeah.
But yeah, sure. Anyone with a pulse that signed your team. Yeah, it is interesting because, like, in some ways, the bottom of the roster has been way opened up, but in other ways, it's more like, I do think Arttu Ratu and Archdeep Baines have strong futures, like immediate futures, more immediate futures than Lekkerimäki. But they do seem very keen on him.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll be surprised.
Yeah. But I think we're both.
Seeloff's the starter. Talipa will be his backup. Lankinen and Abbotsford.
Patera. Poor guy. Yeah, so we should say that they've actually released a round of cuts this evening.
Oh, I had not seen that.
So no one really surprising. I guess Dylan Ferguson, the goalie, who I think had a pretty miserable camp. God bless him, but he was a warm body in the net, so he did his job. I don't think there's anyone else surprising. Like, they liked Ty Glover a lot. Like, I think he was picked to play in the scrimmage over Dylan Ferguson, so goalie for the future. Not goalie for the future. Sorry. Ty, I get confused between the Ties because Ty Glover should be the goalie, but it's not. It's Ty Young, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, Riley Patterson, I think, did decently, but he's gone back to his junior club, so good for you, Riley. And the only one I have a slight question mark over is John Stevens was released from his PTO, but does that mean he's just on an AHL contract now? Because Yes. Okay, just checking, because... Yes, that's right. Okay, so he's on his second year of his AHL contract. Yeah, John Stevens, like, he was actually, like, he's the most AHL of AHL guys, but he had a really good year last year, so I am excited to see what he does on Abbotsford again, but, he's never going to be an NHL guy, so.
Yeah, so if to be in camp, you have to be on a contract of some sort. So it's the tryout for either professional or amateur, depending on your status.
But yeah, because okay, gotcha.
And so all of those who have been released who are on a ATO or PTO, of that group, only 3 have been like, you're not going to Abbey. That's Ty Halliburton, Deegan McMillan, Dylan Ferguson.
Yeah.
Not to suggest they don't find their way to Abbotsford, but they're not in Abbotsford's plans.
Yes.
Pack your bags. Off you go.
And that is to say, sorry, about to confuse Ty Glover with Ty Young, that Ty Glover, who is not the goalie,
he's going to
Abbotsford,
Abbotsford, but he has a deal, as does Josh Bloom.
Josh Bloom.
There we go.
Wasn't he? Was he the kid that went to Harvard?
I don't remember. I could barely keep track of what day of the week it is. Stop asking me difficult questions.
Yeah. Sorry. There's too many, like, very generic North American names. Cooper Walker being an excellent North American generic name. That's 2 last names. Yeah. But
you and names. You like all of our listeners who have names that you insult.
Yeah, sorry. But Cooper Walker, like, a very funny name to me. It's like the name of a general or something. Like in the South. But I heard his name mentioned as impressing for, given expectations. So look forward to seeing him on.
So are you telling me that Cooper's the son of a Texas Ranger?
Is that supposed to
Walker, Texas Ranger?
I see.
Yeah. I have to ask you this. I'm just sort of looking at Vancouver Canucks social media, and they had posted Quinn Hughes meeting up with 105-year-old fan Dorothy Palmer.
Yeah, that was super cute.
Didn't they meet up last year?
I think so. Yeah, this does ring a bell.
Because they presented her the jersey.
Right, that she's currently wearing. No.
Yeah, okay, no, now I remember what it was. They presented the jersey. He recorded a video. Now I bet you this is when they finally met up.
It's very sweet. She is looking spry for 105.
Oh, no doubt. Like I remember seeing the original video and I was thinking, wow, if I can make it to that age and be that well by appearance, you done something right.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. Speaking of doing something right, probably time to wind up the show because we're almost at the 1 hour mark, and the longer we go, the more off the rails it'll become, and it is just complete madness. But what final words of wisdom do you have for all our listeners this week, Anna?
I feel like I say this every week, but hockey's coming, like real hockey. We're going to talk in 2 weeks' time, and we're going to have preseason games, like several preseason games to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just Canucks playing against each other.
Yeah. Final words of wisdom from me. It's just going to be reiterating what I had said earlier. Make sure you get your bits and bobs checked out, boys and girls. And if there's something down there that just don't look right or feel right, you go to the doctor, you get it checked out. Better safe than sorry. And trust me, sorry is not a good thing. Get it checked out. If you've reached this point of the show, I do recommend you jump into the conversation in C4 Discord, discord.io/C4 podcasts. And you can also, if you want to do so, contribute a few bucks our way so that you can buy us a coffee, or as Anna and I like to call it,
me a pint.
And that's just by going to c4podcast.com, clicking the support link, or going to buymeacoffee.com/C4podcast. You can contribute either a one-off amount to buy us a preseason pint, or alternatively, you can subscribe either on a monthly or annual basis to support the show. Any money you give us goes directly into the costs of recording and producing the content. We are not a rich podcast. In fact, if we look back in the yesteryears, we were actually much richer than we are now. Yeah. It is a labor of love that Anna and I put together, and any help that you can provide us is greatly appreciated. We will at some point this season figure out a way to do more for those who support. Yeah. It's just, again, a labor of love. Yeah. And for us, it's finding a way to do it right. You can follow us on all the social media at the C4 Podcast, except for Threads. We're at the Real C4 Podcast. But on behalf of Anna, A4603, myself, Chris at Lightforce, signing off this episode with We Out.